In this video, I'm going to show you how to install Linux in a safe virtual environment on your computer. I'm also going to explain how virtual machines work and why you should master this basic skill to help you increase your security and your privacy. So, what are virtual machines? Well, they take a portion of your existing hardware resources, be it CPU, RAM, disk space, whatever, and they create a virtualized environment for you to run any operating system in it. Modern CPUs have a feature called Inter-Virtualization (VTX), which you can find in your BIOS. It should be mostly enabled by default. In case it isn't, please refer to your handbook on how to access your BIOS and enable this virtualization technology system, because it's required to actually help you run a little bit faster. Now, getting back, with virtual machines you are safe from accidentally destroying and damaging your current operating system. And you can test out new software, you can use snapshots, and even destroy the virtual machine completely without any repercussions on your existing operating systems. And this is actually the best option you have before jumping full ship on any Linux system. Further than that, you can use virtual machines to run untrusted code and browse the internet safely. In case you ever catch any form of malware, you can just reset from a snapshot or just reinstall the system. During this guide, I will be using FreeBSD and VirtualBox, so you can follow along. I would advise you to first get experience with Linux, with a virtual machine, and then go ahead and try FreeBSD. It has an amazing handbook and it details everything you need to know about configuring an operating system. And I didn't find this in Linux in the past, something so detailed. Plus it's a more cohesive system, but for beginners, I would advise you to start with Linux. So you first need to go to virtualbox.org and you need to download VirtualBox. If you're a Mac, you can install it, download it, and if you're on Windows, just save this and start the installation process. You may pause the video until after you've installed VirtualBox. After you've installed VirtualBox, it should look like this, after you, of course, open it from your Windows or Mac system. Now, when you get started, let's download a Linux version. I would recommend you start with Linux Mint. It's easy, it's customizable, it's everything you need, and it's based on Debian. After you get more acquainted with Linux and Linux distros, I would recommend you start playing around with Debian, especially if you plan on running servers. It's much more, let's say, secure, and it's more stable. You can experiment with any Linux version you want, but let's get started. Let's go to the download page, download the recommended, and here you can choose which desktop environment you want. So if you're accustomed to Mac or Windows, there's only one desktop environment. But in Linux and the FreeBSD world, the Unix world, there are tens of different environments, and they all look different. Let's get the XFCE version. Let's download it, and depending on your location in the world, choose something really close to you. Right-click, save as, and save your ISO. And you should be waiting until it finishes. On the other hand, if we were to download Debian, you can see that the base net installer is 700 megabytes instead of almost 3 gigabytes from Linux Mint. And why? Because the installer is a minimal version. You will need internet to do the full installation. While with Linux Mint, you can actually use this offline. For example, if you go somewhere there's no internet. But Debian has other versions for larger installers, complete installation images, which are much larger and which contain a whole base of a system to be used offline. So after you download the image, and after you download any software from the internet, if you don't install it via the package manager in Linux, it's actually always advisable to verify the checksums, to verify the image. First of all, you verify if the download is actually correct, but you also verify that it hasn't been modified. These are two very important things to be done. The Linux Mint people have provide two versions. This is the hash sum. This is actually a hashed sum, and this is a hashed signed sum that it actually confirms that it hasn't been altered. So let's verify the sum. So let's download this file. And let's verify it. As you can see, the sum is exactly the same. I'll leave this as a homework for home to do actually an authenticity check later on to verify that the keys, the cryptographical keys, are actually the same. It's well documented on the Linux Mint website. Now let's get started with the installation. So let's click on Add. Let's click on New. And let's call this Linux Mint. Next, let's give it a base of 2 GB of RAM. Let's create a virtual hard drive. A VDI is the standard. These are the hard drive types. We'll choose dynamically allocated because we don't want it to start using like 40 GB of space at the beginning. We want it to dynamically allocate as it's being used. This means it will use less disk space on your computer at the beginning. How large should you make it? Well, let's start with 40 or 30 GB. It's more than enough. And plus, you can always grow this in time. You can always resize it outside and inside of the virtual machine. So don't worry if you choose something too small at the beginning. 30 GB should be more than enough. Create. Now, let's go to the settings first. You can review the settings here, but what's important is to actually give it maybe two parts of the CPUs or 3 of your CPU. These are some extended features, and sometimes you can even enable nested virtualization depending on your operating system. Video memory, sometimes you may want to give it a little bit more video memory. And if you want to play games, you can enable 3D acceleration. There are also options to pass through USB controllers, and for example, if you have a webcam or if you have a cryptographically secure token, you can pass that through to the virtual machine. And there are other options which you will discover later on. Let's save it. And so now it's going to ask us to select an optical disk. And for this, we need to go to the VMs where we saved our virtual disk. Choose this one, start. And we should be able to select Linux Mint. It's going to actually boot from the ISO, and the ISO is actually a copy of an old DVD form, if you're familiar with DVDs. After some time, it will start booting. It should start. You should see it's actually already connected to the internet. And what we see now is a live version of Linux. So it's not installed at the moment. And you can test out Linux this way. Also, you can install it on a USB or on a DVD if you have those. And you can use it on an existing computer. However, virtual machines are a little bit faster in this aspect. And the internet works from inside this VM. So let's start the installation. Select language. Detect the keyboard here. You can choose any kind of specific keyboard you might have. You may opt to install media codecs or not, depending if you plan on browsing the internet or watching videos in this virtual machine. I'm not going to do it right now. When partitioning, you can either use LVM or whatever. You can manually partition Linux. Play around. I advise you to actually play around with manually partitioning your system. But for most of the people, I'd say just erase and install, because it actually sets up everything. You may want to have different boot partition and a different root partition and a different home partition for installs, but for this live, it's okay. Choose your time zone, your location, where you're located at. Of course, if you choose a very long password, you can also opt to encrypt your folder if you haven't already encrypted your whole system in the previous step. That's also a nice feature. You don't have to pay anything for it. Let's continue. Next step. It's now copying and installing the files. And you can actually play around with the system until it finishes. You can look around and see, oh, you can watch TV, you can listen to music, you can browse the internet. So I'll pause until it finishes. Once you finish the installation, you are presented with this option. Let's restart now. System will reboot. And the system automatically unmounted our optical media. And you're presented with the option to log in. And this is your new installed Linux version. It's that easy. Let's change the background. Something more lovely. Oh, so many options. Congratulations. To actually make this full screen, you need to install the guest additions. And this is in the system and also on your host system. This will enable things like drag and drop, copy paste. Insert it now. Sometimes it's not going to automatically start, so you need to open a terminal. You can hit tab to autocomplete, and this will install it manually. Sudo is just a command to run things like root. And root is the administrator account, which is currently not, well, it is set up in Ubuntu and Linux Mint, but your own user has administrative powers by using sudo. On Debian, you have to set up separate root and a separate user, and you have to install sudo manually. So this is installed. Now let's reboot our system and see that this takes effect. Let's change the desktop settings, display, and make it a little bit larger. And as you see, it auto resizes after you've set it correctly. You can even go full screen. And you can start using this like a normal system. Depending on the operating system you're using right now, you can even share files, share folders. If you right click here, you can share folders, you can enable copy paste, test it out, and as homework, install Debian and a separate virtual machine. And if you really want, and you're into security and you want to have true privacy, I recommend you install Unix in a virtual machine. And I'll leave this as a homework for you. They have actually a version, and they explain everything. Go on the site. It's perfect for privacy. of course, don't do stupid stuff on the internet, but this uses a virtual machine as well, and you can install the VirtualBox. You have to install 2 virtual machines, but that's up for exercise for you at home. I hope this is helpful, and the more steps you take to your privacy and freedom, the better it will be for you and for those around you. Linux is a great operating system, and use it. I've been using it for 20 years. I encourage you to use it day in, day out to replace your existing operating system. Now, please subscribe, please comment and like, and also see the description for the Privacy Zen community and Privacy Zen systems, email aliases, and the other projects I'm currently working on. See you next time.